Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking about episode 10 of season 7 of Dexter called The Dark Whatever, which despite sounding like the name of the most pathetic Batman movie ever, is in fact not. It's just quite possibly the weakest episode of this season so far. In fact, not even quite possibly. I'm definitely going to say that this is the weakest episode of this season so far, which is a real heartbreaker because I've been raving in these videos about what a great season this has been since it started up, and yeah, I'm feeling more than a little let down by this episode. But we got a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it. So we wrap up our little adventure with the Phantom Arsonist. I don't know. I mean, this just kind of felt like a waste here. I mean, it certainly did have the potential, but again, we don't really have enough time. This character, the storyline, it isn't really given enough time to gel. And I just really hate the fact that I feel like I was sort of set up to think that this was going to be sort of a mini boss for Dexter to deal with. And I suppose, if lasting 2 episodes, maybe the Phantom Arsonist could count as that, but I don't know. It just sort of feels like a bit of a cheat here. Now, granted, I think the main conflict between Dexter is going to, for the rest of the season, is probably going to be between him and Deb over Hannah and what's going on there. And the idea of Deb as the major antagonist for Dexter is certainly an intriguing one. We've definitely got enough set up where they could certainly go that way. But still, again, I just sort of feel cheated in this regard. Now, granted, it was sort of interesting to see Dexter, spare the arsonist and throw him to Miami Metro. Something that he probably should have done on numerous occasions in the past, but chose not to. But just the way that this is supposed to kind of counterbalance what Dexter ultimately does in dealing with Hannah's dad. At the end of the day, it basically amounts to Dexter spares the person he should have killed and kills the person he should have spared. I was going to save this little there really is no other word for it, rant for later on in my review, but you know what? This is the main thing that's really bugging me, so let's just get it out of the way. Dexter explicitly says that Hannah's dad does not meet the code. He does not meet the code of Harry. But then Dexter freaking kills him anyway. And he does this as a way of saying, oh yeah, I really am in control of my urges to kill. It's not me. It's not the Dark Passenger. This is totally my decision. Well, okay, that's all well and good, Dexter, but you even said he does not fall under the Code of Harry. And the Code of Harry, as you have repeatedly said, is what separates you from that, what makes you different, what makes you better than the other people that you kill. I mean, Dexter even explicitly said to one of these guys, you are all just imperfect versions of me. So he really has just completely thrown out the only real thing that he keeps him from being any different than any of the other people that has ended up on his table. And this just drives me absolutely crazy. I mean, you guys have heard me rant about how I'm still upset several seasons later about Dexter beating an innocent man to the death in a bathroom simply because he was a dick to him at a time when Dexter was having a really, really crap day. Now, granted, a really, really crap day that includes having his wife being murdered, but still, Dexter killed an innocent person. And Hannah's dad wasn't even an innocent guy. This is a guy who was guilty of child abuse, blackmail, DUI. But still, it doesn't change the fact that Dexter chucked the Code of Harry completely out the window. I mean, really, he's basically on the Code of Brian for almost all intents and purposes. And I mean, granted, yes, he's not exactly there, but still, this is really straight out of the Code of Brian playbook. Oh! And the sad thing is that is not even going to be... No, actually, that is the most ridiculous and idiotic thing about this episode. But sadly, it's not the only ridiculous and idiotic thing about this episode. But now that we've got my main wall banger out of the way, let's just move on. Okay, so as is something of the tradition around here, it's time for my standard episode rant about what a complete moron Quinn is. First of all, I need to reiterate my complaints that Quinn needs to freaking comb his hair. I mean, dude, seriously, I get that you're a plainclothes detective, but you're coming into work looking like you slept in a ditch. And as near as I can tell, that whole thing with you being an alcoholic has apparently been left by the wayside, or at least moved past or something. Seriously, dude, at least make yourself somewhat presentable. Because, man, you are not able to pull off the Titanic-era Leonardo DiCaprio puppy dog just woke up look. No way, dude. Sorry, Quinn. You're just not able to do that. And second of all, I could spend God only knows how many minutes ranting about just how any competent crime scene investigator is going to be able to shoot Quinn's story about what happened between him and Michael to hell. I mean, the lack of gunshot residue on Michael's hands alone should be able to sink Quinn's story. But we all know exactly how competent Miami Metro is at pulling off competent investigations. So, you know what? I actually think Quinn just might possibly get away with all of this as long as Batiste is willing to help cover for him a little bit. But again, this all hinges on Miami Metro's forensic guys being complete and utter incompetent idiots. And, well, we all know that the only two crime scene investigators in all of Miami are Masuka and Dexter, so, yeah. You know, it's not even worth it, really, is it? You know, show, as much as I love this show, I can't stand it when the show basically is really asking me to just accept stuff that I know is complete and utter bullshit. If somebody who knows, essentially, whose knowledge of forensic science comes from basically stuff like watching forensic files, and I can figure out at least several instances in how anybody who knows how to do their job could completely shoot Quinn's story to hell, then yeah, you guys are not doing your jobs properly, okay? No, okay, I'm officially going to leave it at that. Man, Quinn, I bet you're happy you gave Batista that $10,000 now, aren't you? Okay, so let me see here. Alright, let's move over and let's talk about Hannah's dad for a while. First of all, I have to say that I love the fact that they got Jim Beaver to play him. Now, Jim is a guy who most people are probably going to know best as Bobby Singer over on Supernatural. He does a really great job. He did a really great job with Bobby back when I was still watching Supernatural. I kind of lost interest in the show a couple of years back, but still, Jim Beaver, great actor, did a really nice job with Bobby, and he certainly does a nice job with what he's given here. It's just what he's given here is some really crap material. And that's not just for him. It's also Hannah has just written really crap here. Now, okay, first of all, the way he goes from, seemingly amiable and regretful person to just cartoonish villain, sort of crappy TV movie evil abusive dad, and just like that? Oh my god, that's just so ridiculous. And honestly, I felt a little bit insulted as a viewer. It's like, really? You're going to subject me to a character who is this ridiculous? And then there's Hannah. Now, granted, I can give a little bit of mileage to the idea that Hannah might not want to kill her father just because he's her dad, despite all of her issues with him. However, if you stop and think about it, Hannah has also murdered her husband and her mentor. People who, as we are led to believe, she genuinely did care for, simply because they were more or less in the way. So the idea that she can't go through it with her dad, now again, I can't completely discount that, but still, you'd think that somebody who can be quite as cold-blooded as Hannah might not have such a problem as much of a problem as she did. And then just her really weepy puppy dog crying reaction to all this. I mean, really, are we forgetting just how cold-blooded Hannah is? And yeah, speaking of which, when she calls Dexter over to her place after her dad has crashed his truck into her greenhouse. Okay, where was he during Dexter's drive over to this place? I mean, did he just like wander down the street to the Starbucks to get a coffee while he was smashed out of his mind, and then conveniently wander back over to there to make his little appearance after Dexter has arrived? I mean, was he hiding off in the bushes waiting for Dexter to show up so he could come over there and smirk and be a dick? Seriously, man, I feel so bad for Jim Beaver and Yvonne having to deal with this episode because this is just crap. Crap. Oh yeah, and if Hannah's dad is supposed to be from Alabama, why does his truck have Florida plates? I mean, did he rent this? Did he rent that car there? I mean, yeah, I know this is kind of ridiculous and sort of picky, but just something that occurred to me. Okay, so let's move on and talk about something else. Okay, decent scene that I would like to talk about was the profiling scene. Uh, just the sort of description there, more than a little bit actually fit that actually fit Dexter, and I like that Dexter was just completely oblivious to all of that. But then again, if you actually know about profiling, it's actually a somewhat controversial science. It is, as well, actually, as I said, it's a somewhat controversial science. They love it on TV and in movies because, it makes for dramatic stuff. But out there in the real world of forensic science, at least as I understand it, whether or not profiling is actually somewhat useful is a matter of debate. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be expert enough to deliver an opinion about it one way or the other. It's just that's my understanding of the science as it works in the real world, and I'd like to share that particular fact with you folks. Okay, so has anyone else sort of noticed that the Phantom Arsonist probably would have had a great deal more success in burning those people alive on the bus if he had not gone and started throwing that stuff around at the back of the bus? If he started throwing it around when he was in the front of the bus, people, unless the bus driver opened the doors in the back, would have had to go through the flames to try and get out, or try to get out the windows. So if this guy was going for body count, then he was doing it the wrong way. On the other hand, except for the mother and kid, he seems to be interested in just killing people singularly. Maybe the mother and kid was an anomaly. But again, this guy is so poorly fleshed out. His motivations for how he chose his victims is never really explained. So again, there's just so much wasted potential here. It's just sad, really. Okay, so I guess it's time to talk about what's going on with Tom and LaGuerta. Now, this is actually, I think, one of the stronger aspects of this episode. I mean, it was a little, it was more than a little unnerving to see LaGuerta really putting the pieces together and seeing how, holy crap, it does make sense that Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher. Now, I do like that she does finally clarify why it is that Dexter moving his boat is such a big deal. Is that he did it right at the time when the police were poking around the marina. Now, again, that's easily enough to infer, but she does explicitly spell it out here. Now, again, as I said, if that was all it was, then Dexter could have 100 perfectly legitimate reasons for doing that. But if you tack on the fact that he saw his mother's murder, that his brother was the ice truck killer, and all this other stuff, then him and of course the whole blood slide thing, then him being the Bay Harbor Butcher, well, LaGuerta's right. It suddenly does make a whole lot more sense that it was him rather than Dokes. Now, the question is, what's going on with Tom here? Is he, as it says, he's an old friend, family friend of Dexter's? Is he just reluctant to believe that Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher? Or is he looking to, one up LaGuerta, swoop in and, take Dexter down, get all the credit for himself? Maybe even find a way to take LaGuerta down as a way of getting payback for what she did to him. Now that's actually some pretty interesting and intriguing stuff because, LaGuerta and Tom have very good reasons not to trust each other and somewhat marginal reasons to work together. So again, there is some genuine drama there. Now, the real whole crux of this thing is whether or not Dexter is responsible for what he does or whether or not it's the Dark Passenger. Again, I really don't have a huge opinion one way or the other. I sort of like the idea of the Dark Passenger. I think it's an interesting concept. It makes Dexter different than some of the other characters out there who are, sociopathic killers like himself. But on the other hand, people have more or less made many accusations over the years that, Dexter's just kind of looking for something to blame rather than take responsibility for his actions. So whether or not Dexter is going to continue down the line of, this is me, I'm responsible for everything I do, or if he's going to kind of backslide and say, no, this isn't right. There really is this aspect of myself that I can't control. Well, okay, that's interesting. And that certainly does set up a lot of potential conflict, not just between Dexter and Deb, but between Dexter and Hannah. And, it does, as I, it's just going to be really interesting to see where Dexter ends up falling on, which side of the line Dexter ends up falling on by the end of this season. And I have a feeling that it is going to be clearly spelled out to us one way or the other, but just what that may be, honestly, your guess is as good as mine. But yeah, folks, this was quite the letdown of an episode. And after such a strong season so far, well, what can I say? There is really no other word other than letdown, except maybe crap or some other more explicit words. But I think that's that I've said enough in this regard. So let me just have one last look over my notes. Yep. Okay, I've covered everything in my notes that I wanted to talk about, so we're going to wrap it up here. As always, folks, please comment, rate, and subscribe, and of course you can follow me on Twitter at Who's Your Jedi. Oh yeah, one other thing. I should apologize to you guys for getting this review out a little bit late. The simple fact of it is that I've been at the dentist for 2 days in a row in the evenings, and my mouth has not really been in great shape to do a whole lot of talking after that. And I'll also tell you now that my next review is also probably going to be delayed a little bit. I'm going to be having some dental surgery done right about the time this episode is going to come out in the States. It'll be Monday afternoon from where I live here in Korea. So yeah, I'm after the time I would normally do this on Monday evenings my time. I'm probably going to have a rather sore mouth and be doped up pretty well on some painkillers. So while that might make for a rather interesting review, I doubt it would be a terribly comprehensible one. So sorry, the review for the next episode is going to have to be moved until my mouth is going to be feeling better. So with that said, folks, I'll see you next time. Take care and have a good one.